Hello, everyone. It is Wednesday, the 5th of June, 2024. And so much I can talk about. I'm trying to limit it, though. I can talk about Fauci and how he's not in court right now. This is a show, a circus court, just like with Trump. And it's not going anywhere. And it's he's never going to get arrested or investigated for the crimes against humanity that he's committed, the connections with his wife and the companies that she was also a part of, and their connection with COVID and therapeutics, and advisory committees, and the criminality within government of people that are still exploiting us is just it's unreal to me. Like, even in Canada with Justin Trudeau, he's still somehow dictating like our lives, and Patty Hajdu and all these other ignorant, I don't even know what you would call them, public workers who are taking our money, and there's foreign interference. There's so much going on in Canada and the US, and it's getting shut down. So even foreign interference investigative committees, Justin Trudeau and his people within cabinet are refusing to give information that is needed in order for people to do these investigations, and they keep on just letting that go, letting that slide, and instead of actually pushing and saying, no, I'm sorry, but you need to give this information. You are not above the law. You are, anyway. And so this is what's been going on as well. And Helen Gruss still in the courts, Ottawa Police Services for over 20 years. And one of my messages to Patty Hajdu today was that I bet you she's not even tracking the fact that everything that she has done, because she was a member of parliament in a position during the pandemic that she pushed this. She escalated this. She lied to us, and even on the record, there are government emails. The first one that she ever wrote on the record was about 102 countries coming together during, and so even with the 102, the 201, like I talked about, this is a universal language that's used by people, elitists, who think they're better than us and don't mind treating us like cattle, and willingly lie, and somehow still, even today, like she's still like a member of parliament, and it's only supposed to be a 4-year term unless you become or are slated to become the prime minister. That's literally in our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so these people have been shitting and pissing on our Charter of Rights and Freedoms now for at least 8 years, and they're getting worse because people that are supposed to be doing their jobs at the legislative and executive levels and judicial levels, they're not doing their jobs because they're getting bribed and blackmailed by these fucking idiots. And so, yay, Canada, yay. And so we have no one in government right now at the highest levels that actually have our best interests at heart at all. And that includes Wayne Eyre, the Chief of Defense Staff, who somehow still, Chief of Defense Staff, got promoted to general within a week of selling out Canadians and pushing a Can 4 Gen to impose mandates and forced inoculations on soldiers and be seen as the example for Canadians to follow. Despite the fact that people like John Vance and McDonald before him knew that this was breaching constitutional codes and Charter of Rights and Freedoms and fundamental rights and freedoms of individuals, and they were even calling that out. But no, they get the sex scandals. Sex scandals. Pee-pee. Forcing out of people. And and then the John Vance with he's had several relations with staff members. That's been known, obviously, for years. Great at his job, and he wasn't doing anything that regarding there's no sexual assault incidences or cases. People thinking that what he was doing was unethical. Frustrating because we have Justin Trudeau, who possibly impregnated a minor, and who was also sexually assaulted journalists. Who's anti-female. It comes across with the amount of times he has tried to fuck over women, including Raybould, regarding the SNC 11 affair, calling anyone that wasn't vaccinated pseudoscientists, misogynists, all of these freaking ridiculous names, dividing people, and so yeah. What else? Part-time drama teacher, and then you have Doug Ford, who actually his wife, someone who he was with for over 30 years with multiple children, and so he That wasn't even a scandal. Like, it's not even in public knowledge, and he's still the premier. So I don't understand how John Vance and McDonald got kicked out of their positions right away because they weren't signing CanFor gens. But you got people like Doug Ford, who was the premier, morbidly obese, disgusting human being, not because he's morbidly obese, but because of the stuff that he's been pushing in his decal business. Like, it literally went from like $2 million in value to over $50 million in value for those signs during the pandemic. The 6 feet distancing and all that stuff, which is proven that was bullshit. Like, people like me were saying was bullshit since the beginning. Yeah, like, he wanted us to be locked down, and he's premier of Ontario, the province that I'm living in, and he wanted us to be locked down because he was making a lot of fucking money off of it, especially with the shares and stocks. Also, in the military pharmaceutical industrial complex. And the people with the hand signals, like his fixers and staff that he's around doing those dumb signals before and after interviews and committees and stuff like that, thinking that like we don't know what they're doing. Like, you're showing us that you don't care for Canada at all. Like, cool. The foreign interference, look at those people that I've shared for years. And then even with Kennedy, or whatever his name is, from the Conservative Party as well, cheated on his wife, and multiple mayors kicked out within Ontario just in the last 4 years alone because of child pornography or child exploitation and molestation or sexual assault. And these are people that were hired and sought after by Jim Watson, who was the mayor of Ottawa during all of this as well, and was able to gracefully resign a couple of years, like whatever it was, like 2 years ago or a year ago. And Mark Sutcliffe took his position and is just pushing the same bullshit. And the people are like, well, you voted for this. No, we didn't. First of all, I've never voted for Justin Trudeau. And Dominic LeBlanc and these other fucking sellouts to Canada are rigging elections. Okay, and the polls and the elections, it's all based off of CBS. It's literally leftist mainstream media that, again, has foreign interference for what it pushes. That are rigging elections and lying to us and inflating polls for liberals. I mean, it's such a scam, and so there's no way out of this. And everyone, no, we vote for this. And when elections are rigged, how the fuck are we supposed to get out of that? And when we have a dictator that keeps on pushing more restrictions and measures and censorship bills on us, like, again, how are we supposed to get out of this? Like, we're literally, like, unless you flee the country, and some people can't even flee the fucking country, we're screwed. Our economy's crashing. Excess deaths due to COVID up, like I've been saying for years. Myocarditis, pericarditis, cancers, tumors, blood clots, fertility issues still, spontaneous abortion, all of that stuff still. And yeah. So there's a lot I can talk about what's going on, and then like possible World War III being declared by the end of July. And yeah, where do we start? Donald Trump, I keep saying, I'll reiterate it. This was a show trial that he was fully writing the scripts for. Why? Because it gave him a lot more money, a lot more fame and attention and all this stuff. It's such a gimmick, and people are just like, oh, the reason why he's so popular is because like we're giving it to the man. Oh my God. Yeah, so the majority of people are defiant, right? No, you guys the majority of people are getting fucking duped. And I'm not saying Biden is a better option, okay? And like people like Whoopi Goldberg saying that just Donald Trump is a racist. We can't have him in. And you want Biden in? He's a pedophile. Yeah. And people are getting arrested for saying this stuff. I don't give a shit. He's a literal pedophile. His daughter, he showered with his daughter even at the age of 13 years old. 13. And the diary is real. I shared it at the beginning, and I've reiterated since that it was not a lie. And all these other things as well. Like, it's just exhausting. And yeah, and he has connections to the Epstein Island as well. And stuff that he's done during like certain like events that he's gone. Like, anyway, I mean, come on. And look at his children. With the laptop that came out with Hunter Biden, like literally with underage women, girls, not women, girls. And crack cocaine and other drugs and law and firearms, like infractions, you fucking name it. And oh my God, I just can't. Life is interesting. But you can be a player, you can be a woman abuser, a man abuser, all of these things, and that's going to be totally accepted in society. But don't be a flat earther, right? That's the one thing. Like you could be all these fucking things, an actual fucking criminal, but say you're a flat earther and you're apparently worse than all of those people. Very interesting video. Now on to like important things. Blood plasma, seawater, and sonoluminescence. I've been talking about this for a while. I've gone down multiple rabbit holes regarding light, regarding wavelengths, regarding sound. I've talked about this for years. And sonoluminescence, and then hot and cold fusion or plasma, which I believe to be what the sun and the moon are comprised of. And yeah, all very, very interesting things. I've passed this around to a few academics, and they thought this was a very interesting video. It is by Jamie Baturf, posted 7 years ago.
Hey everybody, this is Jamie Baturf with 432 Design, and I have quite a few things I want to talk to you guys about. A lot of really good information. One of the first things I want to talk about is blood plasma. What is blood plasma? All right, this came from the oceanplasma.org website. All right, and they're talking about seawater as a safe blood plasma substitute. Diluted seawater contains almost the same concentration of minerals and trace elements as blood plasma, and yet sodium content matches that of blood. It has been used successfully in animal tests as a blood transfusion substitute. All right.
Wow.
So what they've done is they've taken
diluted ocean water being used as blood used for blood transfusions. Right. So I haven't followed up on this guy. I don't know if he's still alive or not. I don't know if he got Hillaried.
They've taken seawater and diluted it down, right? Instead of the 30 to 40,000 parts per million, they diluted it down, and they just ran it into animals as a blood transfusion, and they were fine. All right. So that was one of the interesting things about the ocean minerals and seawater. I'm going to get to this in a little bit. Also on their website, they talk about seawater also has something about it that makes it more than just water. It sustains life, as proved by Nobel laureate Alexis Carrel, who kept a piece of chicken heart tissue alive in it for 26 years. She kept a chicken heart tissue alive in seawater for 26 years. All she had to do was just, trade out the water, to get rid of all the metabolic waste. So she had to put fresh seawater in there, but she kept a chicken heart tissue alive for 26 years in seawater. Now, seawater can be used for blood plasma, right? If you can use it as a transfusion, why isn't this being about? All right, ocean minerals are crucial. Now, several people have said, well, if you're taking all these minerals, they're rocks. Well, if you take the pills or the powder and all this stuff that's in supermarkets and health food stores, well, yeah, it's terrible stuff. What you need is pure ocean minerals, like we have here. This is pure ocean minerals, 9,000 parts per million. Okay. But I'll get to this in a second. So let me just talk about plasma water. Now, what is plasma water? Because somebody asked me or sent me a question about that. Does this device do the same thing as what plasma water does? Now, what is plasma water? Essentially, plasma water is a device, all right? The plasma reactor, you got air and water going in, just like we have air and water going in. Well, air is actually being sucked in through the holes. I'll get to that in a little bit. But anyway, they got air and water going into this little chamber here, and they're using electrodes to create a lightning, a spark, a plasma, okay, if you will. And that's how they treat the water, and that's it. Then they collect it, and they put it on plants. Now, they show in here where this is plasma water treated plant, and then this is regular tap water. You can see the huge difference. All right. Now, what this leads me down to is, what is this device doing? What is this? And what is sonoluminescence? Now, sonoluminescence is, in a nutshell, is when you take a bubble or collapse a bubble. Now, there's 4, 5, 6 different ways to create sonoluminescence in the lab. It's not like it's a hyperbole. It's been proven. I've seen it. You can see videos on YouTube about it. But there are several ways to do it. You can they have a shake tube sonoluminescence, a drop tower, sulfuric acid. Let's see, they got acoustic neutron, right? All different ways of doing it. Acoustic horn, bubble jetting, cavitation and microstreaming, multi-bubble sonoluminescence, and what we have here is called flow-induced cavitation. Okay, cavitation, bubble cavitation, and sonoluminescence are the same thing. The whole process is of water cavitation is the term for sonoluminescence, right? So flow-induced cavitation is water flowing through a constriction creates cavitation and light. Now, this is what we have flowing through here. We have the platonic solids and water flowing through this constriction right here, all right? Through these geometries, these varying geometries of the platonic solids, right? We're flowing through a constriction. Now, everybody knows that, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in this line of work, they know that architecture, right? For example, architecture is this solidified music, right? Geometry is solidified music, right? It's solidified vibration, it's solidified sound. So with the right geometry, you're essentially creating sound. You're creating the restriction and the sound, right? Through the angles of the platonic solids, right? As the water, the mineralized, the high mineralized seawater concentrate added to tap water, flowing through the platonic solids in this geometry that we have here in the rose quartz, excuse me, it's what creates constriction flow cavitation. This is why we're getting all the bubbles. Now, in the process of developing this is the original prototype. In the process of developing this thing, when I got it like this, right, if I changed anything about the device, if I lowered the stack 1.5 inches, this whole thing wouldn't work. You wouldn't get these bubbles like this. If I changed the diameter of the inner diameter of the tubing, right, if I increased it by just 1/16 of an inch or reduced it by 1/16 of an inch, this whole thing wouldn't work. If I put another bend or an elbow into this whole thing, right, it wouldn't work. I was shocked. I was trying to do all these different things, right? And every time I changed or did anything different in this design here, it didn't create these bubbles. Now, it's an amazing thing. The water tastes unbelievably different than when it comes right out of this device. So just wanted to sum up, right? Blood plasma, sea minerals, all right? We have some. You can find them on the website, 9,000 parts per million, and they have anywhere from 72 to 90 trace elements, minerals, all right? Minerals and trace elements, they are electrolytes, okay? It is what allows the body is an electrical device, okay? Everything from nerves to the brain to how the body uses water, right? How it electrifies water to drop off nutrients, and it uses electricity to pick up waste, all right? It's an electrical device, the human body. Without minerals, without electrolytes, right? It's not working, and no wonder people have fibromyalgia and MS, and where are all these diseases coming from, right? It's absolutely ridiculous, and that we don't know more about, there's stuff done in the 30s, right? From the 1920s and the 1930s, we have a plethora of information about the benefits of highly mineralized water, charged water. I'm doing experiments right now with plants. I'm going to publish a study soon about the difference in how this, we're going to be showing the different plant stages. We got plants soaking in water right now. Tap water, mineral water, and then the energy water. There is something about this whole process with the minerals in there that energizes it. Because if I just put tap water in here, it doesn't bubble like this. It doesn't get that action like this. Okay, you have to have the minerals. You have to have the electrolytes in there for this whole process to take place. And I'm telling you, it is magical. Several people around here. This one guy. He took this water. His chickens. It's hot. It's like almost 100 degrees in Arkansas. This for the past 2 weeks, almost every day, at least in the 90s. And his chickens, the eggs just went off of production almost off. Right after a week of feeding the chickens this water, egg production doubled. What more than doubled. He had tomato plants that had dusty mold, powdery mold on it, and the bugs were eating the leaves. A week and a half later of putting this water and foliar feeding and spraying and feeding the plant the water, the tomatoes are going crazy. Leaves are coming back. The bugs aren't messing with them. There is no mold on them. It's taken off. Everything's taken off. That's why I say in the website how people are blown away. They're absolutely blown away. Aches and pains gone. Now, when I first came up with this device, people were drinking it for 2 weeks while I was trying to figure out how to do a commercial build of this, right? So they drank it for 2 weeks. When I told you, when I tweaked the thing and I created another device that didn't bubble like that, they drank that for a week and everything started to go downhill. All right.
Crazy.
So we got back onto this device. They started drinking this water again, and the pains went away. The little swellings that came up, they all went away again. All right. Having minerals, ocean minerals, not the ones you get in the store, these powdery, pilly, rocky things, right? I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut off this video. It's so interesting. I've watched this multiple times, and I'm doing other rabbit holes. But yeah, I'm so sorry for everyone on YouTube. I try to censor myself to the best of my abilities. And I still get multiple strikes, and I still get like downgraded in the algorithms. I still get like people that that can't find me. They don't get notifications, having to keep on subscribing to me, and people that have liked my videos, and like it doesn't even show up. Like the like option doesn't even show up. I've been told that repeatedly. That's interesting. And or whenever they try to, they'll press repeatedly, like 5-6 times they're saying it, and it's not even accepting it. But it will accept a dislike. And yeah.
Ionic minerals, ocean minerals.
Rumble is the best place, honestly, to find me. Just I'm at John 189, and I have a couple years of videos up now, and almost 2 years, I think, maybe more. But like groundbreaking information, in my humble opinion. And my last YouTube account got zapped again, so this one is from an older account. So I'm missing like at least a year and a half worth of videos on YouTube you're not seeing, but you can see them all on Rumble.
The liquid is completely dissolved solids. You have to have that in the water with your energizing device. I'm not even sure what to call it. It's not even really a declustering device anymore. It's definitely not a structuring device. We know you can't structure water. All right, that's just ridiculous. So anyway, I just wanted to get out this information about the importance of seawater, blood plasma, what the difference between plasma water is, and what these people are doing with lightning. They have to, have that electrical charge in the water to get it to. They're using it as a spray on apple trees and in orchards and stuff, because you don't have to use pesticides with this type of water. All right, and the plasma water is essentially what's going on here, but you're not using high voltage to do it. You're using sound resonance. You're using the geometry of the photonic solids. You're using the device and how this thing works to create that sonoluminescence, which is essentially this way, but it's much cheaper. This is a $285 device. The other ones are thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay, so I think that's pretty much all I had. So thanks for watching.
All he has, like, mic drop. Yeah, that was really interesting. I have shared videos on sonoluminescence before, and Star in a Jar. It's so incredible, incredibly fascinating, and so I hope that people do take a look at that. And now I want to get more into light. Actually, maybe before I do that, no, yeah, I'll get a little bit of light, and then I want to show another video or two from Stinky Cash. So I'm just gonna read some things for you. So convex lens. The lens of the eye is a convex lens. It fine-tunes the focus so an image forms on the retina at the back of the eye. If the eye lens was a concave lens, it will cause rays of light to diverge or spread apart. This would form a virtual image of the same side of the lens object to be viewed. So anyways, I was just looking at just concave versus convex lens, convergent versus divergent light or rays. I would like to say not light, but I mean the same thing. But and how convex lens possibly invert and or flip images, like people have been taught for many years. I don't know if you are familiar with Ibn al-Haytham from Iraq originally, thousands of years, like a long time ago. And actually, maybe I'll just play it through so you can get the whole description of him. There's an intro.
The nature of light has intrigued scientists throughout the ages. Today, it's used in all sorts of applications, from lasers and communication to particle accelerators. We're living in a science and technology boom period. But the roots of our understanding of optics and light can be traced back to a period between the 9th and 14th centuries. That's when a revolution in science took place in the Islamic world, a golden age of science. I'm Jim Al-Khalili, a British professor of theoretical physics, but born in Baghdad. I'll be looking at the state-of-the-art applications of optics and tracing back their roots to those pioneers in the Islamic world who revolutionized a new understanding of light during the golden age. This is Sesame in Jordan. It's a synchrotron, a giant particle accelerator that's going to produce high energy light for groundbreaking experiments. Now, Sesame stands for Synchrotron Light for Experimental Science and Applications in the Middle East. The light it will produce will allow us to study the structure of matter with incredible detail, to learn more about, for example, how cancer grows in living cells, or to analyze cracks in concrete to see why bridges fail, or to check for pollution in the soil. This facility is a pioneering collaboration that's bringing together scientists from around the Middle East and neighboring countries to carry out fundamental research that transcends political and cultural differences in a way that hasn't been seen in this part of the world since the Golden Age 1,000 years ago. The ruling caliphs of the medieval Islamic world brought together scholars from around the globe to further scientific knowledge. Amongst their achievements, they revolutionized the way we think about vision and optics, paving the way for our modern understanding of light. Sesame isn't yet fully operational, but today I've been given exclusive access to this enormous experimental apparatus to see how a synchrotron produces light by using very fast-moving electrons.
Hi,
Hello,
Maha.
hi Jim.
Nice to see
Nice
you.
to see you.
So this is the booster ring.
Yeah, this is the booster synchrotron, which increases energy of electrons so that they can produce synchrotron lights.
And where's the electrons produced? The
And they are
ring?
produced in the microtron. It's called.
Okay. So this is where it all begins.
Yeah, this is the microtron, which produces electrons and accelerates them up to specific energy so that they can be injected into the booster. In fact, the electrons are produced from this source, which is electron gun, and accelerated by the RF source, which we call the magnetron. It's the same device in the microwaves at home, but with larger power. And when the electrons are accelerated, we can extract them through the transfer line into the booster synchrotron.
And it's in the booster ring that they are accelerated around in a circle faster and faster.
Yeah, to get more energy. So their speed will be almost the speed of light. They are injected into the storage ring where we accumulate the electron beam there in order to produce the synchrotron light.
And that's when you can use the light
Exactly.
to
For
do
the
the
users.
to do the
For-
experiments.
yeah.
So there are several stages to Sesame.
First, the electrons are produced in the microtron, which accelerates them around. When they're fast enough, they get injected into the booster ring, where they're accelerated even faster. And finally, as they approach the speed of light itself, they're fed into the storage ring. As the electrons are steered around using powerful magnets, they lose energy in the form of light. This is the synchrotron light, which will be used for all sorts of experiments. Even without the synchrotron light, some experiments are already underway at Sesame. Warood Shadid is a scientist who's using infrared light, which is invisible to the human eye, to see the effects of drugs on skin. She's using a special infrared microscope, which allows her to determine the chemical composition of samples of skin.
I can see here on your computer screen
Yeah,
what the microscope
of course.
can see.
This is the surface of our sample that we are studying. It is a skin sample. If you click at any point you want, you can get the infrared spectra for this point. When you add a drug or treat your sample in any way, these peaks will be different. So you can study what is the effect of your drug on this sample by studying the changes on your infrared spectrum.
Warood's research currently uses its own infrared light source. But once the synchrotron is up and running, she'll be able to do her research at one of the experimental stations that'll be built around the storage ring, and she'll use the synchrotron light.
When we have the beam line, which is from the synchrotron, we will have a light which is very bright. So our sample can be studied with a very high resolution, and so our result will be better.
The experiments that will be carried out here at Sesame will all rely on a precise mathematical understanding of light. And it was the scholars of the medieval Islamic world, as they sought to mathematize science, who first laid the foundations of our understanding of light. Isaac Newton studied here in Cambridge in the 17th century and is regarded by many as the father of optics. But there's another father of optics who goes back much earlier and who's often overlooked. His name was Ibn al-Haytham. Born in the 10th century, he's probably my favorite scholar of the Golden Age because, like me, he's a physicist.
Born in Basra, Ibn al-Haytham excelled at optics, maths, astronomy, and much more. As a young man, the prodigious Ibn al-Haytham traveled to Cairo. The story goes that he was invited to Egypt after he promised the ruling caliph there that he could stop the Nile from flooding by building a dam. However, he soon realized that the task was technically impossible, and so he feigned madness to escape the caliph's anger and was instead thrown into an asylum. There, he's thought to have written much of his important work, Kitab al-Manadhar, the Book of Optics, which was hugely influential for centuries. Mehdi Haddad is an Iraqi engineer at Cambridge University. Together, we're going to recreate one of Ibn al-Haytham's most famous experiments, the camera obscura.
This is interesting.
Found this room for you. Tell us what you think.
Very, very nice. What's the view like?
We have this tower.
Okay, I think that clock tower will be perfect. All we need to do is black out the windows and get the screen in place.
Yep.
The camera obscura is essentially a giant pinhole camera, the size of a so that we can stand inside it. Although the idea of the camera obscura was known about previously, Ibn Haytham's account is the earliest to mathematically explain how it works. He used it as proof that light travels in a straight line.
Okay, I just now need to make a hole. So if you get the screen, right. I'll turn the lights out.
We'll see if we can
What
see
we
the
get.
tower.
Well, that's quite incredible. It looks like a painting, doesn't it? Almost doesn't look real. And, you know, all we've done is block out the light from a room and then allow it to come through this small hole.
Inverted.
That is the clock tower. You can see such detail just from across
Can even see the
yard.
trees.
Yeah, they're not in focus because you could make them in focus if you made the hole smaller.
Right.
But of course, then less light can get in,
That's right.
so it wouldn't be so bright. Whereas now you see it in all these, the vivid colors, and it's so simple. I mean, Ibn al-Haytham would have set up an experiment like this in a darkened room. Such a simple thing to create without any lenses or modern equipment. You know, 1,000 years ago, for him to have explained how this image is created through the hole, it must make you proud as an Iraqi who comes from.
So if you put a convex lens in between the hole and where it's being projected, it will actually invert that image and flip it up like to the right.
Just down the road from where
Right
Ibn
side.
Haytham was born.
That is exactly it. I'm from an area very close to where Nathan was born, so it makes me proud.
Ibn al-Haytham's explanation of the camera obscura helped us understand how vision works. The eye is itself a camera obscura. And the same principles apply to modern photography. After all, that's where the word camera comes from.
I'm going to Istanbul, to the Museum of the History of Science and Technology in Islam. Zeynep Kulayli has been studying Ibn al-Haytham's work, including his explanation for why the camera obscura makes an image that's upside down.
He's well regarded as the first scientist to correctly explain the camera obscura. Talk me through how this works.
If you press the button there, this is the primary light source, and this is the object lighted by this light. The light has to go into the box through this pinhole. You see the F here, and if you look at from here, you will see that the F is Yeah, if it's converted, it is upside down.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
because the light from the top passes through the hole and ends up at the bottom.
Yeah.
And they cross over.
Crossover, because light takes the shortest way and it travels in straight lines.
And this was something that he was able to show and prove.
The fact that light travels in straight lines was known before him, but he, for the first time, proved it mathematically.
Ibn al-Haytham's Kitab al-Manadhar is often cited alongside Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica as one of the greatest textbooks in physics ever written. Latin translations of it influenced such men as Da Vinci, Galileo, Descartes, among others. Such is his fame, today he is commemorated on the back of an Iraqi 10,000 dinar banknote. He's probably most famous for being the man who explained how vision works. Until then, the accepted view had been that of the ancient Greeks, men like Plato and Euclid, who argued that the way we see objects is by shining light out of our eyes onto them. Ibn al-Haytham knew of this view from Arabic translations of Greek texts, but he challenged it, arguing instead, correctly, that the way we see is by light entering our eyes from outside, either reflecting off objects or directly from luminous bodies like candles or the sun. What was most impressive about Ibn al-Haytham is that he combined theory and experiment. So not only would he devise careful experiments to demonstrate particular ideas like light traveling in a straight line, he also put mathematical flesh to these ideas. He mathematized whole fields of science.
Professor Stephen Sweeney is a colleague of mine at the University of Surrey. He works at the cutting edge of laser physics today.
In the medieval world, there's one scholar in particular that I'm passionate about, Ibn al-Haytham, and he wrote a book of optics 1,000 years ago in which he was doing all those sorts of things that you associate with experiments with light today. So reflection and refraction of light, even down to designing experiments with camera obscuras to prove that light travels in straight lines.
Those aspects of understanding the properties of light are absolutely key to modern science and technology, actually. But perhaps the idea that light travels in a straight line is one of the most important ones, and it's one that we really now make use of in technology and science. And actually, we've got a nice example of that here that I can show you today, just based on the research we're doing right now. We're going to be using a laser, and we need to wear these just to protect our eyes for the experiment.
By the way, lasers are light in motion. Okay, you've got the visible light spectrum, then you have the non-visible light spectrums, the infrareds, the ultraviolets, and just by virtue of the of light traveling in a straight line, as was said, okay, this proves that the Earth is not a globe. Okay, because any object beyond a couple miles would be obstructed by the alleged curvature of the Earth, right? Like bending fucking over water and stuff like that. And then the light would be refracted based on being going through a different medium, which it doesn't. And I mean, unless you're counting the convex and concave lens within the cameras or telescopes or eyeballs themselves that converge or diverge rays of light that are transmitted via electromagnetism. Light in motion. And so even lasers go like hundreds of kilometers, miles, hitting other targets and objects. And people try to explain that away, saying that, you know, like that because of the Earth's atmosphere, light bends, you know, with the curvature. That's such bullshit, right? Because again, even at 3 miles, there would be 6 feet of alleged curvature that has been completely destroyed and debunked multiple times, and by multiple people, including myself. And when you look at the infrared imaging that people like Crow, 777, and countless others have also demonstrated, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's no curvature. Anyway.
Okay, so what we've got now is there's a beam of light, an invisible beam of light.
And light requires a medium like ether in order to travel through. And And so I've even asked Chat GPT and stuff like that, things like can light travel in an oxygen-less environment, like a vacuum? And they give all these examples of fucking space, using the fucking sun and all these examples, right, of things that cannot be, that are not measurable, repeatable, or observable on Earth. And I just found that very interesting. And then, yeah, I talk about like, and then they give examples of water. I'm like, water. I'm like, you mean like the ocean? Yeah. Okay. So water, H2O. And so there is oxygen in the water. Oh, and then ChatGPT's like, oh, well, thank you for your patience. You are correct. And then when I talk about the atmos, right, that's, we breathe in, right? This is oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide. And these are gases. This is a pressurized gaseous contained environment. That's another whole fucking tangent. Sorry for swearing. I do that a lot. But yeah, anyway, we live in some kind of electromagnetic reality, light in motion, that's being projected on a flat plane of inertia where we're experiencing or perceiving this simulation. And yeah, anyways, I'll just leave it at that.
A nice straight line from this laser down to this detector at the other end. Now, if I put this card in the way, you can see that there's a nice spot, nice red spot. When I take that away, that the light's traveling through and it's hitting this piece of material here, that's called a photovoltaic cell. So you've heard about solar cells for collecting sunlight. This is a particular type of photovoltaic cell for collecting laser light. And it's actually then driving this little motor. So it's just a little fan. So if I block that again, it stops. And if I pull that away, you can see the fan starts again. Okay? So it's another way of transmitting energy, essentially. So not using electricity, but using light itself as the medium.
And what sort of applications might this device, this setup have?
One of the key projects that we're interested in at the moment is transmitting energy from space, because in the infrared, we can actually get straight through the atmosphere without losing energy. We use a system like this in space. We could transmit solar power 24 hours a day anywhere on the planet that we need it.
This has huge implications the world over in terms of producing power. We wouldn't need pylons and power lines, yet power could be delivered to remote areas or disaster zones. And this technology also has implications for the internet.
We obviously use the
I
internet.
love all the propaganda imaging.
Its transmission, that uses infrared light actually. But if we also put in some sort of high power component to that, we can also deliver the energy. So we can actually deliver the power signal for the internet as well.
And this light, you say it's infrared. So if I put my hand there, I don't see it.
No.
I can sort of, I'm imagining I can feel warmth.
You're probably imagining it because although it's infrared light, it's not quite far enough into the infrared to be measured as heat. The reason we use infrared light is purely because it's a better way of transmitting that light through the atmosphere. And actually more than 99% of the energy can transfer through the air. Now, in the real application that we would use this for, we'd actually use an even further infrared laser, and that would allow us to then not have to wear these safety goggles. So it's what we call an eye-safe wavelength.
I'm sort of wondering what Ibn al-Haytham would think doing experiments with candles and pinhole cameras. Well, he wouldn't even be able to imagine a world 1,000 years later.
I think it's come a long way, but ultimately we're using exactly the same principles that he was thinking about back then.
Today, we understand the physics of how light behaves.
But back in Ibn al-Haytham's day, this wasn't at all obvious. His book changed everything, and he's regarded by many as being the father of modern optics. In fact, I'd go further than that and say he was the greatest physicist in the 2,000-year span between Archimedes and Isaac Newton. So many modern cities around the world today are lit spectacularly by lights. It seems the applications of optics are everywhere. Have a look at this beautiful fountain behind me. It looks as though the colored beams of light are bending round following the paths of the water. However, that's an optical illusion. Light, in fact, is shining up from the base of the fountain and then reflecting off the water droplets into our eyes. Light always travels in straight lines. However, there is a way
Light always travels in straight lines.
Light can be made to bend.
However, it can be made to bend.
if I shine this laser
And water
beam
again, H2O.
through this glass of water, if you look carefully, you can see that the beam of light bends as it enters the glass. And the
So
water
varying densities of gases, I guess you would say. So you've got oxygen within the environment, this environment, and then you've got H2O within this environment, right? And so going through a different medium, so not only glass, but then through water as well, is very interesting to me. And so this is how they try to prove that the, they try to allege that we see things at significantly greater distances over water because of light refraction, even though we're saying it's the same thing over land. And yeah, they have no argument for that.
This is something
Because the
that
change in medium happens within the like either the telescope or the camera. It's not happening beyond it, unless it's very unless you're actually put something in that place. I hope that makes sense to people.
every physicist knows as Snell's law of refraction. But it was known many
Freaking birds are so
centuries
loud
earlier.
today. Oh my God.
Let me show you this rather remarkable diagram.
Exciting?
It's from a text that was discovered only 20 years ago, partly in Tehran and partly in Damascus. It's by a little-known scholar by the name of Ibn Sahel, and it describes Snell's law of refraction beautifully. Let me explain. This line represents the boundary between air and water. If a beam of light enters the water at an angle, it will refract, it bends towards the vertical. This
Bends,
angle
doesn't curve.
is larger.
45-degree angle, light can
Or
travel through a
circle.
prism of like
The ancient
using white
Greeks
light, and then you can
understood
make the
that this angle of
seven
incidence,
visible
the angle that the
colors
beam
of the light spectrum
enters through
of the
the
rainbow.
air, is larger than the angle of refraction in the water. But they knew that the ratio of the two angles remains constant. If you double this angle, that angle doubles. The way they described it was in terms of the ratio of these two parts of the circle's perimeter. That was wrong. What Ibn Sahel understood was that it was in fact the ratio of two straight lines. He said that this chord divided by this chord is always a constant number. This is the correct way we understand it today. Now, Europeans argued about whether it was Snell or Descartes who should be given credit for the law of refraction. In fact, it was discovered by Ibn Sahel 650 years earlier. So really, it should be known as Ibn Sahel's law of refraction.
There were people before him too, though.
Another little-known scholar from the Golden Age who fascinates me is a man called Ibn Mu'adh, who in the 11th century came up with one of the earliest estimates of the height of the atmosphere. Now, he'd worked out that after the
Am I back? Okay.
19 degrees below the horizon. Imagine that I'm standing on the surface of the Earth at this point, A. The sun has gone 19 degrees below the horizon. Above me is the atmosphere, and I can see the last light of the day reflected from the top of the atmosphere at B.
Okay, this
We
is
can
all
draw
fake
this
news.
triangle to the center of the Earth at O. Knowing the size of the Earth, calculated by the astronomers of Baghdad in the 9th century, Ibn Mu'adh was able to use geometry to work. That's not bad for almost 1,000 years ago. Throughout the Golden Age, Ibn Sahel, Ibn Mu'adh, and many other scholars wrote detailed texts on optics, but none were so comprehensive and influential as Ibn al-Haytham's Kitab al-Manazir. At the Süleymaniye Library in Istanbul, Professor Ramazan Şeşen shows me an ancient
هذا ابن الهيثم كتاب المناظر
هذا
في
كتاب
الأوبتيك.
المناظر.
أوبتيك
The Book of Optics. Wow.
I'm definitely
Of
gonna.
course, this isn't an original copy.
Go
This
look at
was
it.
written in the mid-15th century for Sultan Muhammad, who founded the Ottoman Empire. It was written for his library. هذا الموضوع يعني
يصوروا عدسة يعني
عدسة نعم.
كيف
Showing how light enters and is reflected. That's the convex lens within our eyeballs. Also,
كيف ينعكس
converging versus diverging light,
me,
which is
what's-
why we see things the way we do on Earth, right? With a vanishing point, with our perspective, and how we see things more like in a pyramidal way. Anyway,
So amazing is that we, all around the world, we talk about Newton as being the father of optics, and yet here we are,
definitely not.
1,000 years ago, 700 years before Newton, and there's a convex lens and there's a focal point and there's all the lines and parallel lines and the angles of refraction. Here it is, 1,000 years ago. Are all around us, from the glasses or contact lenses you wear to the screen you're watching me on right now, to the particles of light produced in the synchrotron. Everything we know about optics today is built upon the work of scholars like Ibn Sahel, Ibn Mu'ad, and the father of modern optics, Ibn al-Haytham, who first opened our eyes to the science of light.
Very interesting. I thought you would enjoy that. I'm definitely gonna be looking a lot. Like I've looked at his work before. I want to look a lot more into it. More specifically, I want to look at the diagrams and stuff like that, because a lot of people misinterpret the greats, even Copernicus and Einstein and Newton and all these others. Like I've looked at their works and I'm like, so people are like really misinterpreting them and saying like, oh, they later claimed to have adjusted their theories. I'm like, but okay, where's the proof of that though, right? Like when I'm reading their works, like even they're getting the same interpretations, even with Walter Russell, even with Tesla, and but even Stinky Cash, I'll get into that video as well. He talks about perspective being non-Euclidean. That's also very interesting and more along the lines of what I think as well. Again, based on our perception being reality, the simulation, but like based on the convex light through those mediums. And so this though is a flat Earth fact number 17. Lasers prove the Earth is flat.
The globe model mandates that all.
Okay, so let's hear. If it plays. Good morning, November. I refresh this. Yalla. Nope. What's going on? Oh man.
The globe model mandates that all bodies of water must have a noticeable degree of convexity and would drop away from the observer on all sides approximately 8 inches per mile squared. A mathematical.
Yep. And this is based off of Pythagorean mathematics that he provided us based on the diameter and radius of the alleged Earth. And yeah. So 3 miles, 6 feet. 6 miles, 24 feet.
Expression that is very accurate up to even a distance of 1,000 miles. However, I'll be using an online globe curvature calculator like this one to make accurate calculations really simple with observation heights and distances. There is no globe Earth curvature and therefore no globe. Let's begin. For this test, Grota 1 drove his snowmobile on a frozen lake with the green lazen lake colored light test, demonstrating a very flat frozen lake over a distance of 8 miles, which I'll discuss more in a subsequent video.
I've also
shown
over railroad tracks as well. Beyond 12 kilometers. And so there's also that. So you've got over water, you've got over land.
Grota 1 drove his snowmobile across a frozen lake while maintaining line of
Frozen
sight to the laser that was
There you go.
2.4 feet above the lake's surface, with all 6 other atmospheric distortions and a direct line of sight like here. Defying the globe, Grota 1 drove 7.5 miles and could still see the laser source as shown here, and even the laser light shining on his hand. At that distance, he would have had to have been 21 feet high to see the laser source over the supposed frozen hump of curved water. Do you really think that frozen lakes have a giant frozen hump between 2 opposing shores? The nonsensical globe simply does not match reality. And it was at 8.2 feet off of the water. The camera was 1.3 feet off of the water at a distance of 9 points. It had been hidden behind the Earth's curvature. In contradiction to the globe model, you can most certainly see the laser source. This next laser test was conducted by D. Marble at the Pacific Ocean. The laser was at a height of 7 feet off of the water and was 10 miles away from the observer. The laser source's mass states that at that laser height and distance, an observer would have to be 30 feet high to see the laser source. Debunking the globe model, D. Marble brought his cell phone to just inches off of the calm water, and you can still see the laser source. Now, the propagandists have tried to claim that the laser source is only visible because relevant. Under the globe, if the laser was angled downwards, you still wouldn't see the laser source as it would have been hidden behind the curved water. If the laser was angled upward, you still wouldn't see the bright laser source. Next, we have a laser test by a PhD who goes by the name Dr. John D. That's the same PhD who filmed this footage showing a horizon more than
PhD.
5 times further than the globe model would allow. To any honest thinking person, that footage alone destroys the globe model.
Distances. So
But
you
for
can't
this
see
laser
that there's-
test, the distance was
So it's multiple over multiple distances. This is important. Moving and non-moving, stationary and non-stationary objects being seen. Okay, this is what we call the black swan. You know, which like edge with light reflectory of those to simultaneously have those same refracted images, whatever you want to call it. Nope.
9.5 miles. The laser height was 0.5 feet off of the ocean water.
Nope.
The globe model says that the observer would have to be 50 feet high to see the laser source, but in this case, the observer was only 2.3 feet high. Proving the globe faults again, you can most certainly see the laser source. Tested the alleged Earth curvature and discovered for themselves there is no Earth curvature over water, and their laser was 16.42 miles away from the observer. Globe math, the observer would have had to have been a whopping 130 feet high to observe the laser source. However, the observer's camera was only 2 feet above the water, and you could still see the source of the laser. Can you open your eyes and see that the globe has a major problem here? The next 2 tests were conducted at 10.4 miles, but on 2 different days. At 10.4 miles and a laser height of only 1 foot, according to the globe model, 57 feet should have been hidden behind the curvature. Of course, to find the globe, you can see the obvious laser source. Look at the reflection on the obviously flat water. The next day, conducted the same test. Without question, he has direct line of sight to the laser source, not some mirage. All of this footage should be impossible under the globe. I have also conducted several tests at Utah Lake, proving it flat. But this next laser test by a father-son team was awesome. It comes from the YouTube channel Level-Headed. For the test, the laser at a height of 5.5 feet was 13.7 miles away from the observer. At that distance and laser height, the observer would have to be 78 feet high to see the laser. As shown in the video, you can certainly see the source of the laser as it hits the camera. The cameraman even brought his camera down to just 9 inches above the water, and he was able to still film the laser, conclusively proving water does not curve at 8 inches per mile squared as required by the globe. That laser source should have been over 100 feet below the Earth's horizon, but it wasn't below any supposed water bulge. The next laser test was conducted by a truth-loving group of Muslims at the Sea of Galilee in Israel, or Palestine if you prefer. For the test, the laser was 3 feet off the water. Which would mean the observer would have to be 59 feet to see the source of the laser under the globe. Instead, the observers filmed the laser just a few feet off the water. Not only can you see the source of the laser, but the reflection of the laser on the water unequivocally proves the water has no giant bulge between the laser and the observer.
There's no chain to medium.
Again, no
There's
giant water bulge means
reflected or
no
refracted
globe.
light.
For this next test, we have a couple from Romania testing the flat Earth off of the coast in Italy. The YouTube channel name is Paradox Romania. The laser height was 6.6 feet, and the distance was 9.4 miles. According to Globe Math, you'd have to be 26 feet high to see the laser source. Instead, the observer brought the camera down to just 2 feet. Israel, Italy, England, Australia, North America. There is no curve present, and after testing a mirror flash that was 18 miles away shown on this video, this laser source was also 18 miles away. This video comes from the YouTube channel Mike Bowl. The laser was approximately 5 feet high at 18 miles. That means that the observers would have to have been at over 155 feet in order to see that laser. Again, define the globe. The observers filmed the laser just a few feet off of the water.
And a half.
Although more difficult with changes in elevation, more obstructions, you can also test the flat Earth with a laser on land. This test was brought to us by Mikey Smith, horizontally approved. For the test, Mikey drove to different spots along a very flat highway adjacent to railroad tracks, only 5 feet above the railroad tracks. Laser. At that distance, the observer would need in order to see the laser over the curvature hump. According to Google Earth, the laser was at an elevation of 1,912 feet, and the final observation of laser test at an elevation of 1,964 feet, a difference of 52 feet. The globe hidden was 227 feet. Mikey, as the observer, was at an elevation of 52 feet higher than the laser. Subtracting the higher elevation, Mikey still would have had to have been 175 feet higher at his location to see the source of the laser. Belying the globe again, you can see the source of the laser 21.2 miles away. The view of that laser was 100% impossible under the globe. Water, land, ice, oceans, or lakes, the result is the same. The Earth is flat. I've shared these next two tests several times, and I can assure you that these tests were conducted honestly. This one was filmed by me at Bear Lake between Idaho and Utah. That laser was at a distance of 18.83 miles and at 5 feet above the icy water. Under the globe, I would need to be at 173 feet to see the source of this laser. I filmed the laser and its reflection at just 5 feet above the water. Absolutely no curvature is present. This was my furthest laser test so far at a distance of 21.03 miles with a laser height of 5 feet. That is a globe hidden height of 223 feet. At just 5 feet above the water, I filmed the laser source and its reflection, proving the Earth flat. Obviously, it's a direct line of sight to the laser source, over 200 feet of missing curvature. Many people ask what kind of laser I use for the test. Well, here it is. I'll end.
Yeah, I do know which one you're talking about, and I do think I remember either you or he was mentioning it also on Telegram. And so, but the infrared footage of San Clemente Island at 75 miles in Jaren show. So Jaren, follow him if you haven't already. So he's on Jarenism, J-E. I really like the name of that that show, Globebusters.
With two very long observations from a group of well-educated researchers called FE-Core. This video comes from the YouTube channel Decibel Z. These tests were conducted at Lake IJssel in the Netherlands. For the longest test ever recorded over water so far, the laser was 24.94 miles away at a height of 9.6 feet. That equals a Earth curvature hidden height of a huge 298 feet. That is almost enough supposed curvature to entirely hide the Statue of Liberty with its base and foundation included. Breaking the globe, the camera filmed the laser source at just 5 feet above the water. Finally, this test was at a distance of 17.8 miles. The camera filming the laser was only 2.8 feet above the water. Listen.
Okay, check this out, brothers and sisters. 28 kilometers in your face.
Wow. Wow. Awesome.
8 kilometers.
That is awesome.
Come on.
My camera is 95 centimeters above sea level.
Look at that. That's amazing. You can see it reflecting off the lake water.
Yeah.
That's astounding.
That's the nail in the coffin.
Yes, it is.
Off of it.
Oh, this is so great, boss. It's really awesome.
Any intelligent person who loves truth can reasonably perform these lasers. The conclusion is clear. Regardless of the location, flat Earth is our reality. Of course, you can believe in omitted photoshopped cartoon images as your reality.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
You can believe in silly looking space and hope they're real. You can believe in Freemason astronauts dangling from wires and astronauts swimming in pools when they're supposed to be in space. You can believe in the ridiculous moon landings that supposedly took place 50 years ago, even though you can see the obvious 1960s movie set backdrops. You can continue to believe in computer graphics and fake images as your reality, and you can certainly live in your globe illusion. As for me, I seek the truth, not imaginary narratives, regardless of popularity. Flat Earth is a wonderful, fundamental paradigm shift that will awaken your soul, but it's up to you whether you'll accept the truth.
So good. I've shared this video by Sneaky Cash multiple times. I don't know if I have since I've gotten my new account, my old account back up. But yeah, I just want to see this one again.
So hey guys, Stinky Cash here. In today's video, we're going to talk about perspective and horizons, and I'm going to try to explain to the ability why we see things like sunset and why we see the bottoms of buildings being obscured by the horizon. So the first thing I would want to ask is, if we live on a flat plane, would there even be a horizon? And the answer to this question is absolutely yes. Of course, there would be a horizon. So many of the so-called debunkers of the flat Earth theory, including the guy in that video, the top 10 ways we know the Earth is round, they say that on a flat plane, there would be no horizon and that you would be able to see infinitely.
The simple fact is, if the Earth were flat, there wouldn't be a horizon beyond which things could disappear. So from across Lake Michigan, you'd be able to see all of Chicago, as well as the Rocky Mountains.
But this is silly nonsense. A simple Google search should be able to clear this up beyond a shadow of a doubt. So for all you non-believers out there, there would not be a horizon on a flat plane, let's go to this website called askamathematician.com and see what they have to say. Question: if the Earth was flat, would there be a horizon? If so, what would it look like? If the Earth was flat and had infinite area, would that change the answer? Answered by a physicist. There'd definitely still be a horizon if the Earth were flat. Let's repeat that. There'd definitely still be a horizon if the Earth were flat. Identical. While the Earth isn't flat, adherents to that theory are correct in that it's nearly so. And if you're standing on the surface of a round something the size of the Earth, it's difficult to tell the difference. In fact, mathematically, you can make the argument that a flat Earth acts the same as an infinitely big Earth. So basically what they're saying is the horizon on an infinite flat plane would work the exact same way as it does on a ball with the radius of 3,959 miles. You wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It works the exact same way. But we know the formulas to calculate the distance to the horizon on both a flat plane and a round ball. You plug in your height above the ground, you're going to get about the exact same. Correct. The distance to the horizon on an infinite flat plane computes the exact same distance to the horizon on a ball with a radius of 3,960 miles. It's almost exactly the same distance to the horizon to a T. This leads me to believe that to line up perfectly with the perspective optics of an infinite flat plane. This way you won't be able to tell the difference. So let's begin by looking at this perspective diagram. As you can see, all these horizontal parallel lines all converge at the vanishing point on the horizon as they get further away from the observer. So the lines that are below us appear to go up in the frame as they get further away, and the lines that are above us appear to go down in the frame as they get further away. This is similar to what it would look like if you were looking down a long way. When you look at this picture of a hallway, we know that both the walls are parallel with one another. And we know that the floor and the ceiling are also parallel with each other. But our eyes do not see them that way. Our eyes converge them all at the horizon. So this is a first-person perspective. Okay, you are the observer in this picture. But let's take a look at what this would look like from a side angle. All the horizontal lines that are visually parallel, they all visually intersect at the horizon. Okay, so it forms a right triangle here, with the horizontal line being at eye level and the hypotenuse is the ground. It appears to go up to the vanishing point, to the horizon, which is right here. So we know that all these horizontal lines converge at the horizon and they will radiate out of the horizon. All these radiating lines are actually parallel, but our eyes don't see them that way. So a lot of these flat earth debunkers, they make side view illustrations that show these horizontal lines parallel, like this, when they should be making their illustrations like this. The higher up the horizontal parallel line, the steeper the angle at which it converges at the horizon. Okay, so notice how we have a red solid line as the ground. You can't see through the ground. The ground is a true limit. So these radiating lines here,
varying degrees of light at varying degrees of densities is what I believe is how we perceive this this simulation or this multi-dimensional reality. But yeah, with our eyes, our eyeballs, having convex lens, and then needing to have access to like through the nerves within the eyeball, connecting to our central nervous system, needing that electromagnetism in order to function as well, and then even within the viscous environment that the eyeball, that plasma or that fluid that's in it as well as it's also very similar fluid consistency to ocean water. And anyway, I'm going on all these tangents.
they stop.
But even that cerebral spinal fluid, that's also very important with how we how our connections, how our neurons or the electricity and the magnetism within our bodies operate. It's how we receive the signals or that connect our higher level consciousness being that's playing this game, whatever this is. And just like a video game, if you're playing Super Mario Bros, I've said this before, you're playing the game. It's a game that has been created by some fixed coding within the game, right? And so you can do upgrades, you can add more characters and stuff like that, but you can't do it within the original game. And there's just other versions that come out. And when you finish the game, that like you still are, living your world, right? Like you're doing something else, and then you can go back to the game and you can go to different levels. You could save it at different periods, and then that character will retain that memory, right? And also our brains, we have memories. And so it's also very similar. We are literally AI. Anyway, experiencing light in motion via sound, universe, one force experiencing itself dualistically. And but even this in this atmosphere, whatever you want to call it, within this contained environment, these are gases, like I keep on saying, and this is what is required. And electricity and magnetism travel through. It's not empty space. Or dark matter, or any of that bullshit that people like to say as well. And there are people from the past that have proven this. There's so many research papers and dissertations and books from ancient mathematicians, scientists, astronomers, astrologists, that these were advanced civilizations that created advanced infrastructure that utilized color and sound within the designs and free energy harnessing components within the structures as well. And order to lead the so even during like new moon periods, this is the time during the moon's cycle that it's very close to the sun, right? And so I believe that it's not being obscured by the sun necessarily. I believe it's being impacted when it gets energy source, and then when it starts to move away on its path, you get
the ground, but it's radiating out of the horizon, they continue to go. There's no limit in an upward direction. That's why I've continued these lines. It converges at the horizon, at the vanishing point. Set on a flat Earth, and they create side view illustrations like this. And they say, look, this is the angle at which the observer would see the sun, and at no point will the sun ever fall below the ground. And they say the same things for objects on the ground that are moving further away. But this type of side view illustration is completely wrong. You need to connect at a high level. So, and you wouldn't be viewing the sun and the objects on the ground like this. What actually happens is it all converges at the horizon. So the illustration. And when Cash is looking at the sun, this is the angle in which he looks at the sun. And when he's looking at objects get further away from the ground, this is the angle in which he would look to see those objects on the ground. Okay, so most flat earth debunkers get this completely wrong. Now we know all the horizontal lines converge at the horizon, including the ground. Now I've continued the ground in this illustration so that I can make a point. Because if these lines are all converging after the horizon, let's pretend like they diverge, right? Sailing away from Cash, but closer, he's going to be looking slightly down to see it. And as it gets further away, he needs to look a little further up and a little further up and then a little further up. From the observer, as the distance to the horizon is, Cash will be looking 0 degrees, completely horizontal and parallel with the ground. He'll be looking straight ahead. Now, what if the boat gets a further distance away from the observer? Well, now Cash would have to look in an upwards direction to see something that we know is below him. It's not possible. It doesn't work. Now you can only see the face of the ground up until your horizon. You can't see the face of the ground from here to here. But he could see things that are above the ground for a little bit past the horizon. And that's another function. The higher an object is above the ground, the further you can see it past the horizon. But you can't see the ground past the horizon. So if the boat was a little bit past the horizon, but had about 10, 20 feet of height on these sails, this is what Cash would see. Now, if the boat got even further away, Cash would have to look at an even greater upwards angle to see something that is below him. And at this point, that ship's not even possible to see. This is what Cash would see. Nothing. It's past the horizon. The horizon is a set distance away. Now, the same thing happens with the sun. Let's pretend like this top parallel horizontal line is the path of the sun. Cash is going to be looking this way. Then he's going to look a little further down, and then a little further down. Now, when the sun is at the horizon right here, this is what Cash is going to see. And if the sun gets even further past the horizon, see how he has to look down to something that we know is up, and he's being forced to look through the solid red line, which represents the ground, which is not transparent. Cash can't see through the ground. It doesn't work. This is what Cash would see. The sun will have set. This is what Cash sees as the sun sets. Now, many people say the sun should diminish in size and vanish into a tiny dot as it gets further away. But that is not how perspective works, okay? Because we know horizontal parallel lines converge at the horizon. For them to be correct, Cash's eyes would have to be at the same altitude as the sun. If this were the case, then yes, Cash would probably see the sun diminish in size into a tiny little dot until it disappeared. But obviously, we are well below the sun, so we see it go in a downward direction. Now, this video is a time lapse of the sun setting from an airplane. Being in the airplane at over 30,000 feet, this pushes our horizon back extremely far, allowing us to see a greater distance. From this altitude, it becomes more apparent that the sun does diminish in size as it gets further away until it hits the horizon, at which point it completely vanishes. This is exactly what we should expect to see. There's no reason we should expect to see the sun continue to diminish in size until it vanishes into a tiny dot. That is not how perspective works. So why do we see the bottoms of the buildings obscured by the horizon in this picture? Well, it's the same reason why we see boats vanish, and it's the same reason why we see a sunset. We know that the distance to the horizon is an actual set distance. So let's say the distance to this horizon is 3.1 miles. Now let's also say the distance to this island with the city skyline is also exactly 3.1 miles away. Well, if this were the case, because we could see the face of the ground all the way to the horizon, we'll be able to see the beginning of the shoreline of this island. But if the horizon is 3.1 miles away, what if the island was 4 miles away? Well, what's going to happen is it's going to appear to be a little smaller, but it's also going to start bottoming out. You can't see the ground past your horizon. So now let's say the island was 4.5 miles away. What would happen? Well, it would continue to look smaller, but it would also bottom out. And island away from you, and eventually you won't be able to see anything. Now, if you were to zoom in on a horizon, you're not going to be able to see the ground any further past your horizon. All you're going to do is magnify the things that you see with a camera or zooming in with binoculars or a telescope does not allow you to see further in a horizontal parallel direction with the ground. All you'll be doing is zooming in on your already existing horizon, making things bigger and making things clearer. It does not allow you to see further. Now, this kind of obstruction would happen on a ball and a flat plane. But there would be one big difference. On a ball, the further away the observer was, the more these buildings would appear to be leaning over. Because your local location on Earth is always on top of the ball. You always feel upright. So if the observer was, say, 50 miles away from these buildings, the buildings are going to have a slight tilt to them. They're not going to appear vertical and parallel.
Like the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
That's the big difference between perspective on a ball and perspective on a plane. We never see, you just see them bottom out, but they remain completely vertical. The only other real difference between perspective on a ball and perspective on a plane is that on a ball, the higher up you go, the further down you would have to look to see your horizon. The horizon would fall, or it would appear to fall, as you went up. On an infinite flat plane, however, and in reality, we know that the horizon always remains at eye level. So reality matches up with the perspective optics of a flat plane, and it does not match up with the perspective optics of a round ball. So as you can see, these objects in the distance aren't leaned over, they're not slanted, they're just obscured by the horizon because they're a further distance away than the horizon is, so they appear to bottom out. They're not leaning over. Okay, so as we zoom out, guess what? We have the same horizon. Zooming in didn't allow us to see further. All it did was magnify things and make them clearer to see. Things we could technically see with our human eye if our eyes were good enough to see that far. Learning perspective really is the most important thing to realize you live on a flat plane. So many of my commenters and so many of my globe Earth defenders, they don't understand perspective. They all think they do, but they don't. They understand size perspective, that objects appear to get smaller as they get further away, but they don't understand horizons at all. So many of my commenters actually say that there would not be a horizon on a flat plane. Once you say that, the argument is over. They don't teach you perspective in schools. The only people that learn perspective are artists and like architects. They don't teach this to the common person. Why do you think that is? They don't want you to understand how your senses work. They want to keep you as dumbed down and as uninformed as humanly possible. This makes it easier to control you. They want you to deny your own senses, deny all common sense, and then put your faith in them. Trust them.
So I don't agree with everything Stinky Cash has to say. I've said that before. But I do agree with a lot, and he has a very interesting videos. And so that's just a different perspective that I wanted to show. And I wanted to show. I know this video is already long, but this is a video I found from Khan Academy on convex lenses.
Convex lenses first. So remember, concave means it kind of it opens inward like a cave. Convex means it kind of opens out. In convex lens, it'll be symmetric. So let me see if I can draw it. So it'll be one side of the lens will look like that. And this would, you could kind of view this, and oftentimes most lenses
Is it coming back? Okay.
of a sphere, and it's symmetric. So it has some center right over here, just like that. And then you have another surface of a sphere that's exactly the same. I'm doing my best to draw this convex lens just like that. That's a pretty good job here. And let me copy and paste it so I can actually use this drawing in the future before I mark it up. All right, so I've copied it. So let's think about what's going to happen as light goes through this lens, as it's transmitted through it, and maybe gets diffracted by it. So we're assuming this is air out here, this is glass, something that has a higher index of refraction, something in which light travels slower. So you can imagine that some light that is going parallel, I guess you could view it to the principal axis of the lens. This would be the principal axis of the lens right here, just like we talked about the principal axis of our parabolic mirrors. But if you imagine light that's going parallel to that, right when it hits this surface over here, remember the The perpendicular at this point is going to look like this because the lens is actually curved. And remember, it's moving faster on the outside. So the right side is going to be able to stay outside a little bit longer. Or actually, I should say, no, the top side of the light, if you imagine car analogy is going to be able to stay out of the lens a little bit longer than the bottom side or the bottom wheels. Or if we go in the direction of the light, the left side of the car is going to be able to, and just so we can visualize the car, there's the left wheels, those are the right wheels. The left wheels are going to be able to stay out a little bit longer and travel faster a little bit longer. And so it will, so this is the perpendicular again. So it will be refracted downwards like that a little bit. And then once you get to this interface, now you're going to move into a faster medium, into the air again. And let me draw our perpendicular over here. So let me draw a perpendicular over here. And you can imagine that the right side, this ray is going to, the right side of this, actually, let me be good. The left side of this ray is going to come out first. And since the left side of this ray, or the left side of these tires are going to come out first, or maybe the top tires are going to come out first, they're going to be able to travel faster. And so you'll be deflected even more downwards. So it'll look something like this. And the light ray
Oh,
would
yeah.
do something like that.
Oh my goodness, this is such a good point. I'm going to get back to this. This is all like incredibly interesting. And it's showing the same things, right, with these converging, not diverging, the opposite of that. Damn it, Don, converging. Rays, or what are we going to call them? Going through a straight. I want to show something I was actually going to present by Stinky Cash again. And it has to do with MC2 as well. I believe it's, no, not that one. There we go. I have not watched this one yet, but this is from 10 months ago. And the title is The 66,600 miles per hour orbit comes from Google, MC Tune, Journalism, Stinky Cash.
What's up, guys? Stinky Cash here, making a quick video for you today. Yeah, I think it was yesterday, Sharon released this debate or structured discussion regarding Earth's shape with MC Tune. This guy is some sort of paid agent, disinformation, globe apologist, anti-flat earther. He has, he's tried to challenge me to a debate, but then when we were emailing each other, he disappeared. So I don't know what happened. He knew I would smoke him in a debate, but yeah. He had a structured discussion regarding the Earth.
I do think it's a good point. Look, we shouldn't be debating these people because it's the same arguments, the same video, same photos, same rude arrogance and eye rolling and making fun and things like that, and not actually listening to what people are saying and trying to think critically and then do further research. Right? They've been at this for years. And it's NPCs that are giving them like so much friggin' money. And so if we just stop giving them the ammo, they would just have to go, like find it somewhere else, right? Like we're allowing them on our anyway. But I get the reasoning behind it. It was good for a while. I absolutely get the need to show people what the arguments are and how easily they are refuted. But don't they say something like 85% of the population don't think critically anymore because they were groomed and socialized and educated into memorizing things and not going beyond that? And then we have theoretical physicists, oh my God, and theoretical fucking science people that have also destroyed the actual scientific community with their pseudoscience. Because when you're a theorist, like a friggin' theoretical physicist, and you're just like making all of these like assessments, like Schrodinger's cat, right? Like that with the multiverse bullshit and saying like the cat, exists in a world where it's alive or it's dead, and you won't know that unless. And the whole perception is reality thing, but again, it's such a poor example because perception is reality. So anything that we observe within this multidimensional Earth plane is by virtue of our senses, and so yeah, I get that argument. But when you're talking about fucking cats in a box, okay, there's a lot of things that you can deduce to make an assessment if it's alive or dead within this Earth plane that we're operating in, this physical multidimensional Earth plane that we're operating in, light at varying densities by virtue of sound. And so if it's been a few days and the cat hasn't had fucking water or food, maybe, you know, after the days go on, right? Like I can make a more accurate prediction that the cat is likely dead based on observable, measurable, and repeatable data beyond that experiment, right? Where there's where you could see that within this Earth plane. You know, if you remove certain things from a species environment that's required for survival, then they don't last very long. With food, you can last a lot longer without food, but water and air, like very much required. And so these like string theorists, all these freaking theoretical physicists, and I'm just like, I just hearing them talk is so fucking annoying sometimes. And they don't go out and do measurable, repeatable, observable data. They don't do any experiments anymore. It's just bullshit. And there's no like duplicating anyone's work anymore. There's no verifying results. It's just so frustrating how far we've fallen, and people are trying to claim that we're more advanced. Yeah, when there's so much proof still that hasn't been blown up yet or sunk or buried to prove that we've been much more advanced scientifically, especially astronomically.
Yeah. I just want you to watch this beginning part of the discussion, and then we're gonna review it.
If I remember right, what I sent you on the topic, we'll start with. I'll just start with hypocrisy or with claims that we're being deceitful when I don't think that that's at all the case. So, for example, I was watching, and I can bring up the video, but you might recall you were covering Caleb and Derek's presentation at the summit. And at one point they say the 66,600 mile per hour. I think so. They were saying 66,600 miles per hour. And then you said, oh, when any flat earther says this, they are just means different speeds. You said if you went to the store going 66 points, you were going 70 miles per hour. But it's a joke, because obviously if you take the 93 million mile orbit of the Earth and you plug that into any circle calculator, you're going to get 584 million for the orbit. You take the 584, you divide by 365.25, and then divide that by 24, and you get 66,600. So that's not being deceptive. That's you being deceptive and pretending that doesn't exist. We didn't make that up. We're not just saying 60. Oh, it just happens to be. No, that is the average speed of the Earth around the sun. Simply taking the 584, and I don't know what it comes out to if you do a circuit calculator with that.
So he's basically breaking down like the globe Earth science and stuff like that. And MC Chun does not know how to. He doesn't even understand it, and that's so he doesn't understand his own model, and he most definitely does not understand the actual model, which is it's a hyperboloid and toroidal field. Like we're existing on the flat plane of inertia in between that, and but in a simulation. This is a holographic reality.
I can do it right now if we want, just to see what it comes out to. So I'm doing a circle.
Sharon's doing all
He's not even
this
listening.
unnecessary math to try to prove to Mick Toon, who's looking at something up here, I'm not sure, 100 mile per hour orbital speed, okay, which is claimed by flat earthers.
Calculator, and I mean 66,600. Now I don't know what the numbers that come after that are. Circle calculator. So we're doing a radius of let's just do a diameter
Mictune is trying to verify the math. It's all unnecessary.
Okay. Now I'm going to divide that number, which is, I can put this where you guys can see. Can you see that? So we're at 584.
Look at this. What is Jared doing? He's making a fool of himself.
Divide that by 365.2. I don't know if it's 0.25, 0.24, whatever. Let's put 0.25 for now. And we get that, and we're going to divide that by 24. And we're going to get 66,659. So nobody is being deceptive, no matter what they tell you. It's an actual number. 66,659. So when we say 66,600, it's not that we're making up 666 numbers or that we're just arbitrarily throwing them in. That is the accepted known speed of the sun, of the Earth around the sun.
So I don't understand why Jaron had to go through all that unnecessary math and geometry to come up with the 66,600 mile per hour orbital speed of the Earth around the sun. That's not where that comes from. I'm going to show you where that speed comes from. It originated on my channel. I'm the one who first told the world that the official speed is 66,600 miles per hour. It came from a video I made back in 2015. Okay, I believe it was from the series called Getting High and Talking Flat Earth. So we're going to watch a clip of a video I made from 2015, and this is where the 66,600 orbital speed comes from. I didn't do any of the fancy math Jaron just did. I simply used what Google tells the world. Google. It comes from Google. It doesn't come from flat earthers, Mictune. No flat earther is making this stuff up. We are simply quoting Google. So watch my video that I made in 2015.
The globe, the image of the beast. They tell us that the Earth orbits the sun. They put the sun at the center. Heliocentrism has nothing to do with science. The idea that the sun is the center was thought up by occultists, Jesuit priests, the Vatican. It has nothing to do with science. And they say that the Earth orbits the sun going 66,600 miles an hour.
That is the first time anybody made that claim on the internet. I am the first flat earther to show that the speed of the Earth's orbit around the sun is 66,600 miles per hour.
Now, I use this number because on this Earth that we live on, the number one source of information is Google. And if you Google how fast does the Earth orbit the sun, they tell you 18.5 miles per second. Hold on, let me take it ahead.
18.5 miles per second, right here.
Now, Google tells us 18.5 miles per second, but we're not trained to think in miles per second. Why would they tell us miles per second? So if you want to convert miles per second to miles per hour, you need to multiply by 60 because there are 60 seconds in a minute. And then you got to multiply by 60 again because there are 60 minutes in an hour. And that will convert your miles per second to miles per hour. And when you do that math, it's 66,600 miles per hour. What a coincidence.
That's where it comes from, folks. All I did was take Google's official answer, 18.5 miles per second, and convert it to miles per hour. So it's Google who's trying to tell you that the Earth orbits the sun at 66,600 miles per hour. It's Google, okay? It's not flat earthers making up occult numbers to try to spook people, okay? It's Google that will tell you that the tilt of the Earth is 23.4 degrees, which leaves the complementary angle 66.6 degrees. It's Google that will tell you that the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared, or 0.666 feet per mile squared. They've got their occult 666 hidden in the code multiple times. It's orbiting the sun 66,600 miles per hour. It's got 0.666 feet of curvature per mile squared. And it's tilted on its axis 66.6 degrees. Okay, this is the image of the beast. This blue marble image is an image. It's not a photograph. It's an image. Let me read to you Revelation 13:15. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause to be killed as many as would not worship the image of the beast. This image has been incorporated and accepted by every major nation and religion on earth, including the religion of scientism. Here's the definition of image: a visual representation of something, a mental picture or impression of something, a mental conception held in common by members of a group and symbolic of a basic attitude and orientation. A popular conception as of a person, institution, or nation, projected especially through the mass media. An image is a visual representation. This is an image. This image was admittedly created in 2002 using Photoshop by a NASA graphics artist, Robert Simon. It was the default background on every iPhone from 2007 to 2012. This image was blasted in front of the public consciousness for 6 years. This globe is nothing but an image. This is not a genuine photograph or even an accurate representation of reality. It's a religion. It's not science. Revelation 13:18 says, "Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So we already know this is the image of the beast. And we already know that the image of the beast has the number of the beast all wrapped up in it, 666. The globe allegedly orbits Helios at a speed of 66,600 miles per hour. The curvature of the globe is allegedly 0.666 feet per mile squared. The tilt of the earth is allegedly 66.6 degrees. They say the number of the beast is the number of a man, and his number is 666. Well, who is this man? Who is the man with the number 666? Could it be Sir Isaac Newton? Newton allegedly discovered gravity in 1666, when the forbidden fruit, the apple, struck him in the head, and he was instantly enlightened with the theory of gravity. All of a sudden, he knew how things were able to stick to the bottom of a ball. But the discussion about the shape of the earth between Jared and Mick Toon was kind of pathetic. It was a little bit cringe. I don't think Jared did a very good job, except his opening statement, which I thought was pure gold. I thought his statement kind of was like throwing a curveball at Mick Shook. So I will give Jared credit for his opening statement, but I don't really think he did a very good job beyond that, including his explanation of where 66,600 miles per hour comes from.
To make the claim that people are being deceptive, as if they're saying, well, what should we call the speed? Let's call it 66,600. No. If the math came out to 66,400, then we wouldn't say 666. It's just not what the math comes out to when you do the average. Go ahead.
All right, the timer wasn't going.
Yeah, I saw that. Still time.
So your number came out 66,659, not 66,600. And if you round it, it's 667. wrote it to 3 digits. So it's still not actually. Well, what did they?
You see how Mictune is responding to Jaren's poor explanation? See how Jaren did all this unnecessary geometry to come up with a 66,659 ... whatever. And now Mictune's trying to debunk that by saying it's 66,670. That's not where that figure comes from. It comes from Google. It's almost as if Jaren and Mictune are two sides of the same coin. It's almost like they work for the same people.
I think they said, I don't remember what they said, but they didn't say 66,600. They said 66,006 something something.
And Jaren, being a flat earther in the movement, knowing who I am and knowing, you know, he's known me since the beginning of my channel, Jaren should know where the 60, that it comes from Google's 18.5 miles per second. So Jaren doing all this fancy geometry, he's not helping the argument. He's hurting the argument. This is why I get frustrated by some of the people who represent the flat earth. Outside of like
okay. I really like Jaren, so I don't like the rant on that. So I don't know. I'm almost gonna really long video today. A lot more that can be discussed. Actually, I can carry on a little bit more with the convex lens stuff first. Because I cut it off to show you that. No, that one. This delusional paranoia and calling out nonsense is beyond ridiculous. I've had many private combos with Jaren over the past few years, and he's definitely genuine and one of the real ones. I can definitely a solid human being. Yeah, so like there's no calling out, like he's doing so much. Yeah, I get really defensive too, and I like Jeff, like that's a thing. And so like he has watched my channel in the past. He probably doesn't know what this that this channel exists. But yeah. Anyway, it's a opinion. Since
that is parallel. Any ray that is parallel to the principal axis of the lens, any ray that's parallel to the principal axis of the lens, it will be refracted through the lens to that same point, So here we're going to be refracted a little bit like that, and then we'll be refracted more, and then we're going to go to that same point, and so that's another ray, and then this is another parallel ray. It'll be refracted a little bit over here, and then a little bit more, and it'll go to that same point. I think you could guess what I'm about to call this point. I wish I could draw my act a little more and go straight to that point. This point where all of the parallel rays, sometimes you'll hear them talked of as collimited rays. Those are rays of light that are roughly parallel. When they all converge at this point on the other side of the lens, they're essentially here you can view as the focus of the lens, or you can view this length from the lens to that point as the focal length. Now, this lens is completely symmetric. Anything you could do from one side, you end up getting focused on the right side. If you had collimited rays or parallel rays coming from the right side, if you had parallel rays coming from the right side, the same thing would happen, but it would just be on the other side. So that ray would go like that, and then it would be refracted some more. Maybe it would go to this point. It would go to this point right over here. And so you actually have two foci for a parallel, for a lens, two actual points where if parallel rays are coming from one side, they'll be focused on the point on the other side, and if parallel rays are coming from the left side, they'll be focused on at the focal length or at the focus point on the right hand side. And this goes the other way around. Let me draw another lens. And actually, one thing that we're going to assume while we're dealing with lenses, and this is kind of a simplifying assumption, it's called the thin lens assumption. There is a difference in distance it travels depending on where the light travels in the lens. For example, here there's less distance than over here. And in an introductory physics, and we're going to do that here as well, we're just going to ignore that difference in distance because that would lead to some differences in how the light is here than over here. So we're going to ignore those differences, and we're just going to make the thin lens assumption. But using a thin lens assumption, let's think a little bit about what's going to happen with the light. And in the next few examples, I'm not going to worry about this kind of two-step. I'm just going to say, look, it just in general gets refracted in that direction when it exits the lens. So let me just draw a simple lens right over here. A simple lens. It is symmetric. And it has two focal points, one on this side. So that is one focal point. It's symmetric. So let's think about what this lens will do to the image. Let me draw its principal axis again. So both focal points lie along that principal axis. Now let's stick an object out here beyond the focal length. So let's think about what's going to happen. So first, remember, we can pick any point on this object. Light is being diffusely reflected off of every point. I like to pick points that are going to do something that's kind of predictable. So let's pick a point. Let's take the tip and take a ray that does something that's predictable. So let's take a ray that is parallel to the principal axis. And then, I could draw this two steps. So it gets refracted once, and then it'll get refracted again through the focal point on the other side of the lens. So then it gets refracted through there just like that. And then I could take another ray from the tip of that arrow that goes through the focal point on this side. So it goes through the focal point on this side. And so that is going to get refracted like this and then get refracted again. So it comes out on the other side of the lens going parallel. And hopefully this makes sense to you because it's kind of a symmetric deal that we're dealing with over here. If something coming in parallel on the right side will go through the focal point, then something going through the focal point will come out on the other side parallel. So whatever light is coming out, is radially outward onto this side and going through the lens, will converge at this point right over here on the other side of the lens. And so you could do even light that goes straight through the lens would end up right over there. It actually won't be refracted at all. It'll be able to go straight through the lens. And so the image that gets formed on the other side of the lens will look like that. So in this example, it looks like we have an inverted real image. Inverted real image. And once again, it's a real image because the light is actually converging at that point. You would actually be able to put some type of a screen and project the image there. In the next video, we're just going to practice this idea of drawing these rays to figure out what type of images we'll get depending where the object is, whether it's at the focal point, beyond 2 times the focal point, or within the focal point. And the best thing there is we'll just get a lot of practice doing this, drawing these rays and thinking about how they'll get refracted.
Very interesting. Okay. Sorry, just got some really negative news. I'm trying to process that. So anyways, I will, on that note, leave it at that. And hope that everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.